Hi, my name's Kathy Millett, and this week we're looking at lichen and moss. If you look at the halo jungle, there's plenty of lichen and moss around. It's all over the trees, especially the bits the master sheaf runs along. So this week we're looking at how do you recreate it, and let's just look at the colours. It's mostly yellowy green, but it's a bit brighter in places too. So we just need a bit of variety. So what can you do to add that green growth? And I've got some examples here. These are pleurococcus, I think, unless that's something that's to do with the lung. But this is something that grows on the north side of the tree in the northern hemisphere because it's damper and it doesn't get as much sunlight to dry it out. And you can see it's a really bright, beautiful green. And then these are lichen, and this one got watered this morning and it's really vivid and bright and sticking up. But when they've dried for a bit, such as this one, you still get those beautiful colours, but it's not quite as fresh looking. And if I look at the halo pictures, they go really bright green on their lichen. So I'm going to make sure that we have that kind of mossy lichen that's quite bright on these, because it's a jungle, but every now and then the shafts of light will come through, and that's where this moss will be situated. So how can you do it? Well, first of all, if you're doing a smaller scale, like HO or N, just paint it. You won't notice the difference in texture. You can dab it on a little bit if you just want to have something other than smooth flat. So just get a brush and paint it. And that's the easiest way. And there's some great colours out there. These are two that I like from Vallejo, olive green and golden olive. And I do recommend those, 70.857 and 70.967. The next thing you can use is something like an oil paint. Now, same thing as those greens, you might just get a different colour, and this is Terre Verte Hue. It's not quite as bright, but I do like it. It's a nice colour. I won't use it this time because I want to be able to glue something on top of the paint or into the paint, and if I do that, then basically this won't mix with the glue very well. Again, if you're in a smaller scale, another way to do it is to use a pigment. Now you can buy green pigments. I've got a pastel here, and you can literally just scrape your pastel with an X-Acto blade till you have some. And what you can do then is take a brush and apply it. Now I apply it using isopropyl alcohol because I find that makes a nice slurry and stays on, which is all you really need. And these dry with a lovely chalky effect. So I'm just going to put enough on to do this whole section. Create almost like a paint. And then I can just dab it on. And you can keep reapplying more IPA and just re-dabbing more on. And I love this technique. It's so easy. And it comes up with a really nice finish afterwards. I'm just going to carry on putting some up here. And what I really want is some on this huge, flat, monolithic side here. And depending on the brightness of the pastel that you have, depends how the effect is. Now this is quite a subtle one on here, and as it dries, it gets this lovely chalky effect, which I really like. So that's one method which I use quite a bit for lichen. It's just easy to use. And the other thing is you can actually put this onto your brush and use an airbrush to splatter it or flick it with your fingernail if you want to get those nice round splotches, which I find a great technique on roofs. And then I have seen people use really short static grass, but that's not the effect I'm after here. I'm after something a little bit more matted and a little bit shorter. So I'm going to be using just Woodland Scenics blended fine turf. And I've got three colours here. I've got yellow grass, burnt grass and green blend. And I've got to say my favourite is probably a painted version of the burnt grass because it's not too dark to start with. So that's what I'm going to be using. But the green blend, it's nice, but yeah, probably won't use it this time. Now there's multiple ways you can do this. The simplest way is actually just to take some glue, which is this one, and this is just dilute PVA and water. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as it's not going to go off too quickly. And all I do is I just actually probably put it on with a brush to get a better pattern. So in this instance, I just want to bring it along this section here. And then what you can do is just pinch on a little bit of this. You can use a teaspoon if you want. You can just sprinkle a little bit on. Now it technically shouldn't stick where there's no glue. There we go. And you can blow it off, let it dry and then blow off any excess. So that's another really simple method, and that does this great sort of it gets that texture that you get from the lichen. So I'm going to carry on and add that in patches up and down, and then we're going to come back and just make the colour zing a little bit more. So if you're trying to do the vertical sides, it's hard to pinch and sprinkle. So in that case, take your teaspoon and just blow the fine turf onto the bark, and if you've got glue on there, it will stick surprisingly well. And if you do end up building up just a little bit more, but you like that effect and you don't want to get rid of it, then drip on a bit of diluted IPA, perhaps 1/3 isopropyl alcohol and 2/3 water. Drip that on and follow it up with the Delight white glue, and then you'll be able to stick the deeper mounts that you've got of this. It's been a week, and all I've done in that time is let this sit. You can brush off any bits that haven't stuck properly, bit of blowing, turn it upside down if you feel brave, and just get rid of any excess which is sort of sat around. And I've got a few bits that look a bit weird. So I've done that and cleaned up all that and kept any spare bits for the next time. And I'm looking at it thinking, I actually quite like the colour, I do, but I'm still going to paint it a little bit just to give a bit of variety, just to show you how to do it really. So I've got a plastic cup, a little bit of water in it, and 2 colours of Vallejo. One's golden olive, one's olive green, and I'm just going to give them a good shake. I'm going to go with a little bit of olive green and just put it around the bottom of the tree so it's a slightly different colour. Whoops, so there we go. And I've got a brush. Quite a manky one now. I don't want it to be too, I don't actually want it to be too thick. And the reason for that is just that it's got to almost like stain these rather than colour them like a paint, because they're quite delicate and you'll lose the sort of texture otherwise. So if I turn this around so you can see, what I'm going to do is say, actually, I want this bit just to be a little bit of a better colour. So it's almost, because some of these are quite delicately stuck on, if not stuck on at all actually, I suspect some of them. And if you're having problems with it flowing, then, you know, this is another one where, do you remember on the ground we used a pipette to put it on? This is something where a pipette might be quite a good use to have. It just gives it a slightly different way of delivering it than a brush. The other thing to say is if it's not flowing very well, you could add a bit of a flow aid. There's all sorts of them. I've got polysorbate 20 on the side there, or maybe even just a bit of isopropyl alcohol if it doesn't interfere with your paint, because it does make some paints coagulate. See, this bit's probably not as well glued as it could be, but I'm finding this is going in as well as it could. It was actually much easier with the pipette, so I was glad I moved to that. And then I mixed up some of the golden olive and used that on as well. And you can drip them down the tree and let them merge into each other to get a little bit of a sort of colour flow up. So it just changes as it comes up and down the tree. Now if like me you get a little bit flowing at the bottom, just mop it up with a bit of tissue paper. It's not going to really show up much on the ground. There we go, easy enough to paint with just a bit of dilute acrylic paint. That's all it takes. Well, this week's adventure is all about Millscale Kathy and her diorama, so you're not going to get much of me today. So this is my diorama. Well, one of them. I've got a couple. This one is the Optimus diorama. I do love it. Isn't it great? I mean, look, it's perfect. Lives on the bookcase and come visit it whenever I like. Sam's there, so someone to chat to. He's not very talkative, but hey, I talk a lot. I don't need someone to talk back. I just need someone to listen. So that's fine. So yes, we get on very well. Have fun. It's really good, you know. It's important that you get on with your co-workers, isn't it? And we do. Yeah, so he's in the house, housemates, fun. Yeah, so this is my diorama.